Hey, Carl. Now, can you guys hear me?
Hey, Tom.
Hey, yep. Okay, I'll put up the welcome sign like 5 of.
Okay.
I had to send Mitch the link again.
Oh, okay.
And Alan, thanks for sending out that email. I don't know what was going on in the national.
Let's say I'm not in a good mood with national these days. And Carl, to your message.
Yeah.
Well, it's blank national. The first word beginning with the letter S.
Friendly? Fun?
S, I said.
Oh, I thought you said F.
No. I am discreet, if nothing else.
It's funny. I've got this screen in front of me that's blocking me seeing you, Tom. It's my video preview. It's spooling.
Really?
Yeah. It's got an Xbox, and I can't X out of it, the little sucker.
Because I could see and hear you fine. No issue.
Yeah.
It's funny. The box that's up in front of me is a video preview screen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's showing me in a freeze, and I'm waiting for it. I hit the join with video button, and it's just spooling. Says,
you want to exit and come back in?
Yeah, I guess I'll do that. Let me try that. Okay.
And Alan, I was emailing Mitch earlier, and I told him.
I think I'm still. No, go ahead. You guys talk. I'm going to shut up. Go ahead.
I told him, just let me know when you want his PDF file to be presented, and when to update pages. Same thing with you. Just say, put up the Braves, put up whatever.
Yeah. That's fine. I was hoping to get the Pirates book, not the Pirates, the Crawfords book by now, but we don't. But I am going to talk about my person in there a little bit. I haven't really prepared anything. I'll just read excerpts and tell everybody about what the books are about.
Okay.
And I will speak a little bit about our ongoing project. This is evolving, Carl, to let you know. The thing about First Games Back, Bill and I will be talking about it probably within 24 hours what our next steps are. And it is Bill's and my idea that we will involve 3 chapters in this book. Our chapter, his chapter, and Len's chapter. So more to be said.
Well, what does that mean?
We don't know yet. National was not as receptive to what we think is a great idea as we expected. So we're just going to see what our next steps are going to be here. But as I said, this is late breaking news. So like 2 weeks ago, I had offered to do a couple of stories, and then I didn't hear anything. No. The thing is, as far as that's concerned, I was hoping we could get them in, but Bill says we are past that line. We have the stories we have, and Sabre National didn't want us to go with all 59. They said go with only about 20 or 25. So I at this point, I'm just very frustrated with them. So.
I see. Okay. Well, I didn't know what had happened, so.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I should have brought you up to date, but
this is being
me.
recorded.
I have this wonderful disposition and never lose my temper. I don't know if Tom has ever seen me in my glory or not.
Oh no, but just to keep remind you, these sessions are recorded.
Okay. No, that's why we're going to have Mitch
So
talk
please.
for a long time.
Hey, as far as Mitch is
Tom,
concerned, does he get 30 minutes, 40 minutes?
Hey, Tom, can
yeah.
you kick me out of? Tom,
What was
can you
that?
Tom, can you kick me out of this meeting? I can't even shut myself out. Can you just do me a favor and just? Is there a way for you to boot me?
I'm gonna try it.
Okay, appreciate that.
Up, he's booted.
Yeah, I was
have you heard-
gonna let him do is it like 35 minutes and 10 minutes of Q&A?
Yeah, I think that's what was in the agenda.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I was, we were going to have Eric Sherman, but he had a conflict, unfortunately, and he's traveling to visit his daughter. So I don't know how that's going to work out. I don't know.
Also, and we're going against the Fenway Writers session tonight.
Yeah, yes. And Bill was able to send out, Bill and Joanne, a ton of reminders to everybody about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's why I was hoping to get this out to as many people as we could, as quickly as we could. We'll see what we get.
Yeah, whatever.
I was just finishing up Eric's book.
Hold on. Carl's calling me. Hey, Carl.
Oh. Hello.
You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
I didn't realize it did that.
Tom is on the phone with Carl.
Carl was locked out because I removed him.
Well, he asked you to.
He asked me to.
I think he might have to reboot his whole computer and sneak on.
You could always try coming in as somebody else. You're not. I only show 3 attendees right now. There's Alan. Hold on. Tom is joining here.
Oh, there he is. Ah, there he is. Slow. He has more bookcases than we do.
Holy cow. Zuko has a ton of, my gosh, he has a library. Okay, bye.
That is what he has.
Carl's still locked out. And we got another person coming in from an iPhone.
Oh, hi, Stan.
Hey, Stan.
Unmute yourself. He has to unmute himself.
Yeah, you come in unmuted.
Hi, Paul.
Actually, I'm not even going to bother.
Okay, Stan's okay. Paul, we have to unmute Paul somehow.
I could.
Lower left-hand corner of your screen, Paul.
Yeah.
He's okay.
There he is.
And same with Tom.
Yeah, I'm going to ask him to hold on. I got Carl calling me again.
Uh-oh.
Hey, Carl.
Okay, Tom, we can hear.
Okay.
And that's Mark Wise.
Mark Weiss comes through as Jen.
Well, that's the way Mark Wise appears. He has an alter ego.
Mark got better looking.
Hold on. Let's see what I got here. I can't. No, that's gallery view. Enter full screen. I don't. Well, let me go to full screen. Hold on. Oh, I gotta log in via. Okay. This is gonna take me a little while. Because I'm gonna have to log in through the web. Yeah, I could do that. Hold on, we still got people coming in. I don't want to lose them.
Somebody's hand.
Let me send you an invite. Participants. I didn't realize it. Okay, I'm gonna go default email. And who do you want me to email it to? Okay. At what.com? Email.com. So it's BL. Oh, you got your Gmail. Yeah, a Gmail account. Okay. Okay. Okay, it's going. Bye.
Hey,
Okay,
Mark.
we gotta let
Hi.
Carl hack his way into this meeting.
I see Mark finally got in.
Hey, hello, Mark.
And we
John,
got
how's
a
it going?
Justin coming
And
in.
we see somebody else over there. We see a hand.
Probably Joe Williams with the Mets.
Joey.
Well, tip, whoever you are, tip your screen to yourself so we can see your face.
Is that Mark?
Hi, how's it going, Stan?
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
Good, how you doing?
All right.
We gotta wait for Steve to get on. He's hosting this.
Yeah, but it's not 7 o'clock yet.
I figured it'd have to be at least 7:05.
Yeah.
He's
always
always
late.
fashionably late, right?
He got lost.
Okay, I got an iPad coming in.
That's Carl who was on the iPad last time.
Well, Carl got locked out.
Oh.
Thanks. He said, remove me from the meeting, so I did. And it won't let him back in. Something we got to remember in the future.
And Alan's email, no problems, right in, you know, on the link there.
Oh, everybody got in okay. Carl had an issue with his video, and he couldn't get out.
Okay.
And, okay.
How many do we have? We have 9 people on right now.
Okay.
And Justin has to be unmuted. Of course, Mr. Met doesn't talk too much,
There
but
you go. How's that?
Okay.
What was that?
there we go.
We got a few more people.
Okay, we do. Welcome, everybody.
Evening.
Thank you.
If we broke double figures.
Glad to be
Yeah.
here.
And we got a few more people coming. Of course, our main man isn't on yet.
No. Well, it depends. Where is Carl?
Carl got lost.
Cyberspace.
Who do I see? Oh, hi, Stan. The other Stan.
Stan O.
Stan O. Remove the mood from Stan O.
Hello.
Howdy.
Hello.
My wife's name is on the login, but I'm Jim Chikolsky. I'm a relatively new member.
Oh,
Okay.
welcome.
Not to worry.
I just joined in November, and I haven't been to any meetings or functions yet, so this was new for me.
This will be a memorable first meeting.
This is our first Zoom meeting, so expect a lot of, oops.
We're all new together.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Jim Michaelitz. I'm from the SABR chapter in Southern New Jersey, the Goose Gossip chapter. So thanks for allowing me to
great.
crash the party.
Well, welcome. Welcome to everybody.
Oh, yeah, I got your email earlier, a week or
Yes.
two ago. Yep. Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Carl's in limbo somewhere, I think.
Yeah, well, we got two things, Jim Ham and iPad, so.
Well, we need Steve, unless you want to be the host, Alan.
Now we do. Let's give Steve a couple of more minutes, guys. Take a breather.
Yeah, we
Got
got
a
a
drink, whatever. By the way, Tom, do you have that $5 bill you're supposed to put up as a visual so I can collect the money?
all I got is a 20.
Oh well, we're okay. I can give change.
Here, I'll take 20, here's 20.
Okay.
Is that virtual change?
We're dispensing with dues for these things as far as I know. But I would like to say to everybody seriously, sign up for the virtual convention, I believe begins today. The virtual convention, the schedule probably will be out. It starts on July 9th, and it'll be going Thursday through Sunday for the next 3 weekends. And there are about 40 presentations, as well as an annual meeting, an announcement of the Bob Davids Award winner. I'm not too sure what else will be going on. And that's Larry Levine.
Larry's here, Carl's here.
Carol, get in.
Carl is there.
Whoever Steve is.
Want to wait a little bit for Steve, or do you want to
Well,
get
wait
going?
a couple of minutes, but don't want to keep everybody hanging. And we still have some people coming in, so I don't want to have
Yep.
Mitch start his presentation and then not have somebody zooming in on him.
And I'm not going to put up, hey, there's Stu. I know him.
Okay, and Stan O, how are things going with the newsletter?
Very well. I've got quite a bit of material for it. I'm finishing up two more articles for it, and I'm shooting to have it out sometime next week.
Okay, that'll be our 11th edition of the Woodpile, and they are all out on the new Sabre website. That if you go to Smoky Joe Wood chapter on there, you can look at any of the articles that we have had over the past few years now.
Yeah, and I'll actually be doing a little write-up of this meeting as well. So near the end, I'll take a picture of everyone on the screen so we can.
That sounds great.
You think Steve forgot?
Steve?
Maybe I should give him a, I can't give him a call. I have to.
This Carl.
Because I did send out the link to my whole reading contact list, and I believe Steve is on it. So
Steve emailed me earlier this afternoon.
yeah, he did. He hasn't forgotten us.
Okay.
But everybody.
I'm thinking at 5 after we start.
Yeah, at 5 after, yeah, we'll start. Carl, would you like to, at 5 after, do the introduction of our speaker? And then we can have Steve, when he comes in, make general announcements.
Okay.
Sure.
Not really quick enough to do all that.
Hey, the one thing we do ask is if you could unmute, if you could mute yourself during the talk, just as a courtesy to our speakers.
Oh, I wanted to ask whether this is being recorded for future viewing or not.
It is. Sabre
Great.
records it. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
It's over here, okay.
Is there a way to get a gallery view of everybody?
There is. Up in the right-hand corner, you'll see something. It'll be, if you run, it's like a little box with a bunch of, like a Hollywood Squares box.
Yeah, it's sort
It's
of like.
called Gallery View.
Does it say gallery on it or something
It's,
like
yeah,
that?
it's Gallery View.
And then we right now have, what is it, 5, 10, 15, by the end of 17. Who's Jim M?
That's
Jim
just-
Mazzara.
Jim Mazzara, yeah.
Yeah, okay, David Scrivens. David, I see is trying to get into.
Okay. Mitch, you want to get up?
Yeah, sure.
Do you want me to show your presentation yet, or do you want to talk a little bit?
No, you can show it. I'm hearing like a noise. Is everybody else hearing that noise? It sounds like somebody's choking a duck.
Oh God, no.
Unless my fan is making too much noise, I don't think it should be.
Really, I'm the only one who hears that.
Yeah, if you could mute yourself, other than, and that will include me.
Oh, okay.
I'm muting now.
All right.
All right. Are we ready to roll? Okay. All right. So, all right. So yeah. So I'm going to talk about what I saw when I went through Jim Bouton's notes with him, and then I went through them again later on when they were at the Library of Congress, because they really formed the basis of Ball 4, as anybody who's read Ball 4 knows, and they're an important part of my book, my biography of Bouton. You know, the middle part of my book really talks about how the book got written and how he and Len Schechter put this thing together. And so I'll talk about the notes, but then, you know, afterwards, if you want to talk about anything else about Bouton or how it got put together or anything like that, we can certainly do that. But I'll leave this. I'll start off with the butter yellow box, because that's what these notes were contained in. If you go to the next slide, I can show you the butter yellow box. So there it is. You can't see that the box is yellow, but these are what the notes look like. And so I assume that most people here have read Ball 4. And if you haven't read Ball 4, you're at least familiar with it, or else you're probably not in Sabre. I think they throw you out if you're not familiar with Ball 4. If you're not familiar with Ball 4, please don't admit it, because I think they're going to cut you right out of this talk. But anyway, so here it is. Here's the collection of notes. Now there's 978 sheets of paper here, and these are the notes that Bouton took during the 1969 season while he was a Seattle Pilot and later a Houston Astro, when he was jotting down all those things that would later turn into the foundation of the book. And so it was really interesting to go through these notes. And I'll just pass on a real quick story. So I first saw these notes in Bouton's house up in the Berkshires. So, you know, he took these out. A lot of things were already packed up and prepared to be eventually, which they were, sold to an archive or a collection somewhere. And as I said earlier, they ended up at the Library of Congress. Not that they knew that at the time, but most of the stuff was boxed up in his basement already. So it was a little bit frustrating to go and then go into the basement. And I saw all these boxes and they were all duct taped closed. And I asked if I could go through them. And of course I couldn't, because they were all cataloged and everything like that. And it had taken them months to put everything together, and they didn't want me going through and just screwing everything up. But the butter yellow box was not in any of those things. And so Jim brought them up. And when he brought them up from the basement and he laid them down gingerly on the coffee table in his sunroom, it was like putting a baby to nap in his crib. I mean, he carried these things very gingerly, and you could tell right away that they meant a lot to him. And so it was interesting to go through them, but it was also interesting to watch him go through them, because you get to see just how much they meant to him. And this is a half century later. They meant a lot to him, which is why they probably were not just bound up in all those big boxes with everything else. I mean, these were really the thing that, there's one thing of Ball 4 that mattered the most to him, physically at least. It's the contents of this box. And so you can see there's a Pan Am jacket, there's some hotel stationery, there's dry cleaning receipts, there's a few airline barf bags in there, and you can, he wrote on both sides, and you can see when you go through it, he used up a lot of available space. So he writes all over them on the front and the back, he writes up the sides, you'll see some of that later. And so what I want to do is just go through a few of the things categorically that I noticed as I went through them, particularly when I went through them with the Library of Congress, because I had a longer time to go through them at that point. So if you can go to the next slide, I can start with the first thing that struck me when I went through all of those notes, and I read through all of them. And again, there's 978 sheets, but there are thousands upon thousands of musings on those sheets. There's 4 or 5 things, if not 10 or 11 things on each piece of paper. The first thing that caught my attention were the catchphrases. So if you read Ball 4, these things stand out to you. You probably remember them. You know, hiya Blondie, how's your old tomato, all those things. It's really cool to see that stuff in its original form. And so every time I saw those things, which I recognized from Ball 4, it was like a special thrill. And I think if you're a Ball 4 fan, those are the things that are going to stand out for you first, because it's just, oh yeah, this is where it came from. And at one point I said somewhere, I can't remember what talk, but it's like, you know, it's kind of like if you could see the actual stone tablets with the 10 Commandments on them, that's kind of what this is like, the baseball version of what this is like. And so those are pretty cool. So there's the Hiya Blondie, and then there's a lot of comments on there, like observations or things that somebody says, and this is about Steve Hovley, who was a member of the pilots who had, for that period, considered scruffy hair. He kept his hair a little long, and Bouton noted that he got 3 hits that particular day, and the comments about his hair vary in inverse proportion to the number of hits he gets, which is pretty much baseball logic of the time. You know, like they'll give you a tough time if you're not doing well, but if you can continue to get 3 hits, they'll let you wear your hair a little bit long. So if you can go to the next one, I have some more catchphrases. So this is one that everybody remembers from Ball 4. Okay, you guys, act horny. A lot of that stuff just pops right out at you. But also, you see that there's other stuff above it, and there's stuff above and below. A lot of the stuff ended up in the book, but a lot of it didn't, just because the book is just not a collection of anecdotes. It's a story of which these anecdotes play an important part, and they become woven through the story. But there's a lot of interesting stuff in there that actually didn't make it into the book. Next slide, if you could. So here's another one. This is Gary Bell. This is taken from a meeting with the pitchers. You know, what do you think, Bell? Smoke 'em inside. And of course, everybody remembers that one if you remember Ball 4. And that's how Bouton would sign all of his books. If you have a signed copy of Ball 4, it probably says smoke 'em inside. I have a little story about that, which I'll tell you at the end, with regard to him signing a book for my son. But that's normally how he signed the books. Next one. This one I liked. You know, how do you pitch to Frank Robinson? Reluctantly. So, you know, that's the Bouton humor, and that one ended up in the book. But I also wanted to draw your attention to everything around that little quote. Just look how much stuff is on this paper, right? I mean, it's chicken scratch, and it's all over everything. Some of the stuff I had trouble deciphering what he was saying, because his handwriting in some places is not so bad, but other places, I mean, he's writing while he's standing. Sometimes he's writing as he's walking. So some of the diction in there is not so clear. So thankfully, I had him for a period of time at least, but then even afterwards, I had Paula, his wife, who I could always call and ask. You know, I would send her something, earlier I would send him, but then later I would send her, you know, a photo I took with my phone of something, and I would ask, can you just decipher this for me? What is he saying here, or what, you know, what are you saying here? And they were always able to figure it out, which was great. All right, next slide. Another catchphrase, which I label under the patriotism heading, best time to shoot beavers during the national anthem. And probably not the most politically correct thing, but we're talking ball four here. One thing that comes up a lot, and you know, I've done a fair amount of talks and interviews since this book came out, and this note here is a really good spot to kind of stop for a second and talk about this. So I get a lot of questions about, okay, ball four is funny, yes. Ball four broke new ground, yes. But the question I get more than anything, I think, is, do I think Bouton was fair? You know, because you know, he wrote this book. Some of the players, particularly Joe Morgan, alleged that he didn't know he was writing a book, which is not true, by the way. I spoke to many members of the Astros and the Pilots, and I could not find a single player who would deny that they saw Bouton taking notes, and to the extreme that some of the players would say, if something happened on the bus, somebody would yell out, "Hey, Bouton, put that in your book," something like that. So they all knew he was writing a book. I think the thing that they didn't understand was they didn't understand what kind of a book he was writing. So if they felt betrayed, they felt betrayed by the fact that they thought there was this omerta in the clubhouse that was broken. And so that's where the question comes in. Do you think Bouton was fair? And so here's my take on this, and you can disagree with this, or we could talk about it later or whatever. I don't think fair enters into the discussion, personally, because I think fair enters into the discussion when we're talking about journalism. So journalism should be fair, right? An investigative report should be fair. I don't view this as journalism. I don't view this as an investigation. I view this as sort of like an artifact, a historical artifact. It is what it is. And what you want with an artifact is for it to be authentic. Authenticity isn't fair or unfair. It just is. Bouton in the book was showing you what it was like to be a major league ball player. And major league ball players are crass, they're crude. Even Bouton comes off in the book here and there as arrogant at times. He's a little self-centered, I guess, to be fair. And so, yeah, he'll have his opinions. He always thinks that he should start because if he starts, he's better than this guy and better than that guy. And, but that's just how they were, and that's just how they are. And so I think what you want with an artifact is you want it to be authentic. And so I don't think the issue of fairness plays into it. That's an issue that comes up later when he writes Foul Ball and he starts to do real investigative journalism into GE. And there, I think that becomes something different. And so to me, Foul Ball is a different story than Ball 4, because I think those are two different things. And so I think the fairness issue might come in a little bit more there than it comes in here. But yeah, I don't really think that's much of an issue, although I know people disagree because they think he broke a rule. My personal feeling is, personally, I don't care. I just like that I'm able to peek inside and see this thing. So go to the next one if you could. All right, so outside of the catchphrases, what I really noticed a lot when I started looking deeper was you could really see his outlook. And by the way, so if you look at this note, you can see that there's stuff written everywhere. This little note that I'm going to read is written sideways in the margin, because he really used every available piece of paper and every inch that he had. This one struck out to me. This is not in the book. Sorry, it's in my book, but it's not in Ball 4. He writes in one time, I don't want to be just average or appear to be so. I want to be hip and be considered intelligent and aware, creative, funny, fun to be around. And that really gives you an insight into Jim Bouton circa 1969. He was aware of the image he wanted to project on the team and also in the book. And that goes back to this issue, I guess, of fairness and whether that's an issue for you or not. But I thought that those things were interesting, and those things do appear here and there throughout the notes. Next slide, please. And here's something I noticed, which he wrote about Dick Allen, which struck me because I wrote a biography of Dick Allen, so I'm always interested. Here he writes, I'd have to know the circumstances surrounding Richie Allen, the looks, the subtle meanings, the attitudes. This might just be a man trying to be one around people who expect something less and who are used to something less. And so there you get a really good insight into Bouton taking a look at somebody who seems to be getting a lot of crap for trying to be something outside of the box in which those around him are trying to place him. And that just, to me, it shows you a perspective beyond the typical ball player. I spoke to Lou Hoynes, who was an attorney for Major League Baseball, attorney for Bowie Kuhn during the labor negotiations in the 60s and the 70s. He told me that, he said, most ball players were pretty, they're just ball players. They don't really think too deeply. But then he said, you get guys like Bouton and Joe Torre and Tom Sabre. He mentioned those three. He said, those guys, they're deep thinkers. And they stood out almost immediately to the ownership group as guys that you had to pay attention to, because they know that those three guys could hurt them. They weren't too worried about many of the ball players, but anything Bouton, Seaver, or Joe Torre had to say, they paid attention because they know that these guys were not your typical ball player. All right, next one. Here's another one trying to make sense of why he's not pitching so well. Maybe my subconscious set these past 3 miserable years up for me so I could come back and beat the odds. It would be a tremendous thrill. You can't imagine the thrill of doing something nobody thought you could do. That's why I love Cassius Clay. I wanted him to beat Liston, and when he won, I think I know how he felt. And that's really the theme of Ball 4. This guy trying to come back and beat the odds, which again, he tries in 1978 when he comes back with the Atlanta Braves, and does, to an extent, beat the odds. He actually wins a game. That's a little bit of a taste of it there. But there's a lot of that in the notes, a lot of him trying to put on paper his worldview. Not much of that ends up in Ball 4, but the theme of it ends up in Ball 4, if not the exact words. Next one. This one, again, is a very Jim Bouton perspective. Just a little anecdote, which he mentions, cops beating up on guys who ran on the field one day. Why, I asked, so they won't do it again. Well, they don't belong on the field. And he writes, I sympathize with the guys who ran on the field. And that's who Bouton was. He was the guy who ran on the field, and then they gave him a uniform, and he stuck around and was able to pitch. And so that comes through a lot. Next. Okay, so this one, I'll explain this one. Now this is from 1969, and he writes, once in a while, I'll try and remember exactly how I felt as a kid and then see if I can recapture that feeling I got when I first walked onto the mound at the stadium. I can't quite do it. It was fun being a name and a star, and it's that part I want to find again. So when I first saw that, I thought it was interesting just because it's an interesting perspective. He's trying to recapture this. Later, when I was talking to him and Paula and people in their orbit, I learned that he later learned how to hypnotize himself. And when he would hypnotize himself, this is exactly what he was trying to do. Now, this is when he was getting into learning how to hypnotize himself. This is many years after this. We're talking in the 90s at this point. But the sort of hypnosis that he was talking about was this idea of trying to place himself in an earlier position where he was doing well, and then trying to remember what he did back at that time to try to replicate it. Hypnosis sounds like a weird, wild, witchcraft sort of a thing, but it really, what he described really wasn't that. It was really more of this trying to train his brain to act as it acted back when he was successful. And he's saying it here in this thing before he doesn't know. At 1969, he has no idea what hypnosis is. But he's trying to do it, even though he's not aware that that's what he's trying to do. And then 30 years later, he actually is learning how to do it. And he actually becomes somewhat successful in it. But again, hypnosis, and I write about it in the book. When you first hear that, you start to think, you get these weird ideas, but it's the sort of thing he was talking about was actually, it's a very interesting perspective, and it makes a lot of sense. If you're in a bad place, trying to remember how you felt when you were in a good place and try to bring up those actions to try to get you out of where you are and bring up those tools to help you improve and get out of that place. If anything shows that he's not a typical ball player, this is it. Next one. Here's just a funny one. And again, it's written on, I like that it's written on the Delta stationery. You see it on the top. So what he has here is he's about to, he finally learns that he's going to start. This is a big part of ball 4, when he finally gets a start. And he's on the plane, and he starts to worry that he might never get that start. So he writes, if the plane goes down, I hope the papers list the probable starters. Then he catches himself and he says, geez, what corn. I must be sick. I don't want to think about it anymore, mess up my mind. This is what I've worked for, and it's fun, great fun. I'm really lucky. And so, the plane doesn't go down. He gets his start, and, does okay. Doesn't resurrect his career or anything, but I think as the year goes on in '69, he starts to realize that it's more than just, wins and losses, as another note later shows. Next one. Here's something from, he wrote down that was, he showed a portion of it to his brother, and he wrote down his brother's reaction. This is a great book, Jim, but what's mom gonna think? And that was something that did concern him. And in fact, his mother was very upset, not so much of what was in the book, but the reaction, the initial reaction to the book, the outrage that just blew back at him, that really threw her, and she was upset. But then she very quickly came on board and was actually a big supporter of his. She never had a problem with what was in the book. She just thought that he was going to ruin his career. I don't think she was really all that aware that his career was over anyway by that point. There wasn't much he could do to ruin it anyway. Next one. And here's a couple of things about some of the notes are him thinking about the book that he's going to write. And so these are notes to himself about things to focus on while he's observing, things to focus on when he's recording his tapes at the end of the evening. So he's got sex in baseball, the old time Yankees, what the clubhouse was like, how each win is worth $1,000, and of course, shit fuck, which of course becomes the big catchphrase. from Joe Schultz that makes it through the book. Next one. There was a few writing tips in the notes. I thought those, as a writer, I find those to be interesting. So here's one where he writes down to himself, when writing a critical piece, start out gradually with the weakest stuff and then build a case, then come with the big stuff at the end. I'm not sure Ball 4 does that. I think Ball 4 starts with a bang, but I just thought it was an interesting thought that he would write these tips about how to think about how to approach the material while he was taking his notes and observing. And there are some of those in there. Next. And here's the one I was referring to earlier about how at some point during, these notes aren't dated, so I don't know when in the season this becomes, this note is written, but it seems is towards the end of the year. And he realizes the book is going to be bigger than anything that he'll do as a ball player. Suddenly baseball didn't matter. Suddenly the book became all important. This is a book about people, which of course it is. And then the note goes on, but I just cut out the, gave you the big stuff. So next one. Okay, so almost done here. How much time do I have?
You have, you got about 6-7 minutes, and then you can do Q&A.
Okay, sure, that works good. All right, so as I said, you know, going through the notes was great. I loved going through them at the Library of Congress when I had as much time as I needed to just go through all of them, and I could pick them up and I could hold them and I could take pictures of them, and I couldn't bring a pen in there, but I could take pictures. And so that was a lot of fun. But to me, what was also just really incredible was watching Bouton go through these notes. Now, we didn't go through all 978 of them together, but we went through some of them. And when he was going through them, I was half watching him and half watching the notes, because I was really interested in his reaction, and that it just seemed like he was in a different place when he was going through them. And so I want to read you a really short little excerpt from the book. It's just a couple of paragraphs, which really sums up really what was going on as Jim and I were sitting in his sunroom, and he's going through the notes in the butter yellow box. So, well, here we go. Jim dreams in baseball, Paula, his wife, told me. It's his metaphor for life. If he's happy, feeling strong, he'll be pitching well in his dreams or running successfully to catch a ball. If he's down, he struggles in the baseball context when he sleeps. It was the metaphor he returned to over and over in his writing, and whenever he was trying to explain some offbeat, otherwise hard to explain passion in his life. Ball 4 itself opens with his dreaming in baseball, standing on the mound at Yankee Stadium, vanquishing his old team with his dancing knuckler and driving in the winning run to boot. I'm 30 years old and I have these dreams, the book begins. For decades, the bare bones of his dreams were nestled in a butter yellow box that made Paula nervous whenever Jim took them out to show an interested visitor. 978 pieces of paper that were the genesis for the soul of the book. The notes he jotted down on hotel stationery and air sickness bags, capturing the musings of Gene Brabender, Gary Bell, Doug Rader, and the rest of the pilots and Astros. They were clearly his pride as he showed them off. This one's on Houston Astros stationery, he'd say. That one's from the Jack Tar Hotel. He'd beam as he showed them, his eyes half on them and half on the memories they elicited, the dreams they inspired. They were his children. He gave birth to them. He nurtured them, formed them, and then sent them out into the world where they were embraced by millions. Their success reflected back on him, and he'd be awash in it whenever he took out the butter yellow box. When, for a moment during our initial meeting in 2016, I slipped into fanboy mode and asked him to sign my beat-up copy of Ball 4 for my high school-age son, Alex, who, with perhaps a gentle nudge from Dad, selected it as his free choice book to read over the summer, Jim, perhaps inadvertently, perhaps not, provided me with what I found to be something that might as well have been his battle cry as I began my work on his life story. Fuck 'em all, let it all hang out, was how he wanted to inscribe the book. A toothy smile exploded over his face as he said this loud enough for Paula to hear, fully aware that this would gently pickle her. She overruled him. Don't you dare, she said. So then he signed it as he usually did. Smoke 'em inside, he wrote, which is no doubt the battle cry of the army of Ball 4 junkies, who even a half century later devour the book every spring as a preseason ritual, laughing and crying along with Jim Bouton before they drift off to sleep for the night, where they all hope to dream in baseball just like him. Okay, and I'll stop there. And next slide. I have one more slide. And so I will take this word of wisdom from Alvin Dark and take a hike and answer questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, if you have questions, we were thinking about putting them in the chat, but you know, we're all adults and can respect each other's space. So if you just want to unmute and ask a question, feel free.
Hey, Mitch.
Yes.
Hi, Paul Hensler here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I saw your presentation, of course, out at 9 in Tempe a couple months ago, but the earlier slide that showed the box itself, one item caught my eye in particular, and I wonder if you might know of any details behind it. And you mentioned that ticket sleeve that said Pan Am on it. And I'm wondering if you have an idea of where he was flying to. And I ask because Pan Am at that time was not licensed to fly within the United States.
I don't know. That's a good one. I don't know. I think I only have that picture with the Pan Am thing on it. I mean, it's just a sleeve.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then, of course, did the Astros go to Montreal?
I don't think they were licensed to fly there. Did he play in Hawaii in 1969?
He went to Vancouver, so he might have.
Okay. Okay, that might have been the ticket then to get to Hawaii.
He spent a week there.
He did?
He spent a week in Hawaii, yeah, just before he got called back up again.
No, okay, so there you go. So maybe that's where that comes from.
Okay. Thank you.
So, other questions, comments? Speak up.
Yeah, Mitch, Alan Cohen here. By coincidence, a few fellas who I've written about were in the book and treated pretty nice in the book. Gary Bell, Tommy Davis, Skip Lockwood, and Mike Marshall. Did he speak with you about any of the players he was, involved with on the pilots, especially say Mike Marshall, because they were pretty much on the same wavelength as far as intelligence was concerned?
Did who speak about him? Jim?
What?
Did Bouton speak about
him? Did Jim speak about them much when he was talking with you?
I mean, he did talk about Marshall a lot. He mentioned, of course, the chess matches that would take place on the, the tarmacs. They would walk back and forth. But no, he and Marshall had a really interesting relationship. Marshall helped to edit the book, which I was surprised to learn. So in the section of the book that goes through all of the machinations between Bouton and Schechter and World Publishing gave up on the book, and they assigned a bunch of editors to it who admitted they didn't like baseball, they didn't really care. And so Bouton sent copies of the book to various people, one of whom was Mike Marshall. One was his father, who gave him some great advice, but another was Marshall. And Marshall, when I spoke to Marshall, Marshall told me that he said he thought the book was great and an important book, but he thought it was way too snarky. And he told Bouton to cut the jokes out because he said it's an important book and you ought to keep it, the important point of this book is going to get lost in the snarkiness and the stupid humor. Bouton didn't really take all of that advice, although he did cut some of it out. But he and Marshall had a long-standing relationship, and of course, they were so close that Bobby later wrote a book with Marshall's ex-wife in the early '80s, talking about their divorces and things like that. I think he and Marshall were particularly close. I don't know if he was particularly close with really anybody on that team other than Marshall, maybe. Although we like Gary Bell.
Mitchell, very good presentation. Do you think there are any current Major League ball players that are similar to Jim Bouton?
Somebody asked me that earlier. I came up with somebody too. The guy from the Expos, not the Expos, the guy from the Nationals. What's that guy's name? He's kind of a free spirit.
Sean Doolittle?
Not Rendon.
Sean Doolittle?
Who?
Doolittle? Sean Doolittle?
Yes, Doolittle. I guess Doolittle is like in the mold, but really, I think that era is just over. You know, I mean, guys like, I mean, you can be a Jim Bouton, and it's not going to cause World War III like like it did when he was playing, because everything is so different. So I would say Doolittle's probably the closest, but I don't think that the landscape is so different that I don't think it'd be hard to do something that would make you a Jim Bouton like character, other than be like a Barry Bonds or a player like that. But he's very different than Jim Bouton, so I wouldn't compare Bonds with Bouton at all.
We only got a couple more minutes, so maybe one or two more questions.
Yeah. Steve Kravisky, and I apologize for being late. I wanted to jump in and thank you for being with us. A couple of things. I wonder about the analogy between Jim Bouton and also Jim Brosnan, who wrote about like the 60-61 Reds. One thing in particular, I don't know if this came up in Mitchell and you're talking with Jim. In both four, one of the things that stands out to me in that book is when he said something about that he thought Elston Howard was a clubhouse lawyer. And years later, I read Arlene Howard's biography of her husband, along with someone else who worked with her, where she brought that up and disputed that happened. So I'm wondering if you could comment about those two things, along with if Bouton was self-reflective about vis-a-vis one of the notes you showed us, that he was a star for a couple of years before he got hurt. And it must be tough to know that you're never gonna be on that same stage again. So if you could comment about that, that would be good. Thank you.
Yeah, well, the scars between Bouton and Howard, I think were never patched up. There were only two people who wouldn't speak to me. One was Bobby Richardson, and the other was Arlene Howard. And Elston had died many years ago, but I reached out to her, and I got a pretty curt response from her daughter saying never to mention Jim Bouton again in their presence. So yeah, that never got patched up. Although Bouton, I think years later, has said that after his daughter died and he had a lot of personal issues throughout the 70s, 80s, 90s. I think upon reflection, I think he did regret that. Elston Howard, I think, is a good guy, or was a good guy. And Bouton did go after him a little bit. And I think, I'm not going to speak for Jim Bouton, obviously, but I do get a sense that he didn't have a lot of regrets, but I would bet that if you were to ask him what was a big regret, Elston Howard's name would come up first, probably.
Okay.
Okay. I think that's about it, Steve, as far as time for.
Okay. Mitchell, thank you very much. And how do we get a hold of your book? And thank you for being with us. Where do you located, by the way?
Well, where am I located? I live outside of Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
So you can obviously get Bouton, The Life of a Baseball Original. You can get it at wherever you buy books. You can get it at Amazon. You can get it at bookshop.org. In terms of signed copies and things like that, I have a bunch of book plates. So if you buy a book and you want me to sign a book plate, you can just email or DM me or contact me on Facebook, and I will personalize that and send it out to you free of charge. I do have some copies of Bouton here, which I could sign and send. Those take a few weeks to get to you, though. if you're interested in that, again, contact me and I'll let you know the specifics of that. I don't have a ton of them, but I have some. But other than that, you can get them through. You can get the book through Amazon, bookshop.org. Pretty much anywhere there are books sold, Bouton is being sold. So yeah, you can get anywhere, and I hope you like it.
If I could jump
Thank
in
you very much.
If
Well,
I could
thanks for
jump in
having me.
for a quick second here. Here's what the book plate looks like, if anybody's wondering.
Look at that. It's a handsome book plate.
It is.
Congrats, Mitch.
Paul, thanks for showing that. Much appreciated. And Mitchell, thanks for being with us. Hopefully you'll come back again.
Well, yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Well, glad to do it. And so good to have you with us. The next in the batting order is Alan Cohen to talk about what's new in SABR in terms of books. So, Alan, you're up at the plate.
Okay, thank you, everybody, and thank you for coming. Just want to talk a little bit about our SABR book project. We have published over 70 books now. Each year, we publish about 12 books, one a month. We also do the Baseball Research Journal twice a year and the National Pastime. Our two most recent books, Tom, if you could put up the graphic about the 1995 Braves, so people can see what the cover looks like. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about, there it is, about one of their players by the name of Alejandro Pena. I'm actually doing this, I believe Tom Zacco might be on the line because we have to talk about a Dodger for Tom. And I start this book with a quote, and after the quote, the biography goes downhill from there. Because the quote is, in a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This is a line that Vin Scully said. And it's ironic that Vin Scully and Jack Buck both came out with their iconic lines about the same play. Jack Buck said, "I don't believe what I have seen." So Alejandro Pena, and I'll watch my time here, appeared in 3 World Series during his 15 Major League seasons. But his first appearance was the kind of thing you can only dream about. He was called in from the Los Angeles Dodgers bullpen in Game 1 of the 1988 World Series. His team was trailing the Oakland A's 4-3 at the Dodgers ballpark. He pitched 2 scoreless innings, striking out 3 and allowing 1 hit, a harmless infield single with 2 outs in the 9th inning by Stan Javier. Pena was due up 4th in the 9th inning, and it was determined that he would be removed for a pinch hitter. With 2 out, A's reliever Dennis Eckersley walked pinch hitter Mark Davis as Dave Anderson, the apparent pinch hitter for Pena, looked on from the on-deck circle. But as Davis headed to first base, Kirk Gibson grabbed a bat, and Anderson returned to the dugout. Gibson, half man, half beast, whose arrival as a free agent in February had so dramatically transformed the Dodgers, now limped toward the plate to face Eckersley, an eyewitness wrote. Pena was in the clubhouse when Gibson's iconic 2-run pinch hit homer on a 3-2 slider gave the Dodgers the lead in the World Series, and Alejandro Pena had his first and only World Series win. He was born in June 1959 in the peasant village of Cambiaso, Puerto Plata, Dominican Republic. As a boy, he worked with his father, also Alejandro, building dirt ovens near their home. It was hard work, and on Sunday, when they paused from work, young Alejandro would play baseball. One of 7 children, 5 boys and 2 girls. He played third base as a youngster, and it wasn't until he was 15 that he played in any semblance of an organized league. This is the beginning of the bio that I wrote on Pena. There are bios in the book on all the members of the 1995 World Champion Braves. And oddly enough, this bio, I didn't write for this book. I wrote it for our book on Dominican ball players. And that book will be coming out later this year in both English and Spanish language editions. So that's something to look forward to. And I'm going to talk now a little bit about another book, if you can put that one up. It's about the 1982 Milwaukee Brewers. Harvey's Wallbangers. And this book is edited by Greg Wolf, and I might add that Tom Holford, who's a Sabre founder, edited the Atlanta Braves book along with Bill Nowlin. And I would be remiss if I did not mention Carl Reichers and Len Levin. Carl Reichers is our fact checker. Without him, I'm dead in the water on virtually everything I've written. And Len Levin is our copy editor, bless him, over in Providence. He's still going strong. He edits all our stories for all our books and some of the online stuff as well. Harvey's Wallbangers is edited by Greg Wolf. Greg is also the head of our bio project committee, or one of the heads, along with Rory Costello. And again, Len Levin, Bill Nowlin, Carl Reichers, they're in all of our publications. For this book, I did a biography on Randy Lurch. Randy, most people who remember him with the Philadelphia Phillies, but he, towards the end of his career, he was with the 82 Milwaukee Brewers, and I did have the pleasure to speak with him. We had a wonderful, far-ranging interview discussing any number of things. And with him, I start out his biography. He's a San Francisco kid. Now, there is nothing like one's first view of a big league ballpark. From a distance, you see the light standards rising high into the sky, and as you get closer, the rest of the building comes into focus. The car ride that Gordon Tillett took his grandson on in 1962 was to a relatively new ballpark. Candlestick Park had opened in 1960, and it was time for Gordon to take his 8-year-old Randy to his first big league game. That's a question I often ask my subjects about their first big league ball game. Some of them, their first big league ball game is the one they appeared in. Others, at a very young age, went to their first big league ball game. And he said, "It was that day I made up my mind someday I would pitch at Candlestick Park. Making it to the majors became an obsession with me. It was my dream, the only thing I ever wanted to do." Randy Lurch would, on April 30, 1977, return to Candlestick Park as a member of the Phillies. The rookie left-hander was making his 4th start of the season and going for his 3rd straight win. Grandpa was there, along with Randy's parents and sister, not to mention more than 100 supporters. By that time, Lurch was 6'5" tall and 190 pounds, and had a fastball that rivaled those of his more experienced teammates. The Phillies gave the youngster a 6-1 lead on that Saturday afternoon, but the Giants chipped away with a run in the 7th inning and 2 in the 8th before Ron Reed relieved Lurch and put out the fire. Randy Lurch had realized his childhood dream. I want to talk briefly about our upcoming book. Our upcoming book, now I look at myself on the screen here and I see a reverse image, so I don't know what you guys are seeing, but I have on a hat of the Pittsburgh Crawfords that we got at the Pittsburgh Convention back a couple of years ago. Our next book is on the 1935 Pittsburgh Crawfords. For those of you who are not familiar with that team, they had a couple of guys named Josh Gibson and Satchel Paige. They were the stars. And my player for that book is a guy by the name of Sam Streeter. Sam Streeter, in terms of his physique, was about the same size as me now. An imposing figure on the mound, not really. He basically threw an assortment of pitches, none of which went above 70 miles an hour. And he had all sorts of stuff on the ball, mostly illegal. But he had some great years. He pitched for the two great franchises in the Negro Leagues, the Homestead Grays and the Pittsburgh Crawfords. It could be argued that the Kansas City Monarchs are right up there as well. But it was basically Streeter in his early days with Satchel Paige that taught Satchel how to pace himself and how to throw off-speed pitches when they were together in the Negro minor leagues. So it was a fabulous story to do. It's, as most Negro League stories are, we put a disclaimer out there about them, that the stats aren't always there. But we read the papers, we read the Pittsburgh Courier, we read the Chicago Defender, and we get some great stories of that time in history, and I'm quite sure this book will be wonderful. I'll mention about Josh Gibson, a very interesting thing that I found out. Josh Gibson played in 14 big league ballparks during his career, and he hit a home run in every one of them. And in a couple of places, he only played there once. He only played once at Briggs Stadium in Detroit. He only played once at Wrigley Field in Chicago, and only played once at Sportsman's Park in St. Louis. There's a lot of myth about that guy, but my God, he was good. We are looking at the Pittsburgh Crawfords. We have in our pipeline for Sabre for books about 20. And one project that we're working on right now, and we're not too sure where this is going, but we'll keep everybody up to date, is something called First Games Back. First Games Back is a whole bunch of stories that we've put together on players, teams, and cities coming back after hiatus. Because we are currently in a hiatus and we all can't wait for the first game back. We have games after 9/11. We have games after two hurricanes a couple of years ago in, Tampa and Houston. We have the game after the earthquake during the World Series in San Francisco. We have Willie Mays coming back to the Polo Grounds in 1954 after serving in the military, and also in 1962, the Giants' first game back at the Polo Grounds. Interestingly enough, I was not at that game. I was there 2 days later, though. My father wouldn't let me go to a night game at the Polo Grounds for some strange reason. But we have games. This is an interesting thing for a Sabre book or any book. Our first game is 1871. We had a player come back after a 5-year absence who played with the Philadelphia Athletics. We then have our most recent story, 2019, where we had a pitcher come back who had been injured. We had Ted Williams coming back from World War II, Bob Feller coming back from World War II. It's just a great number of stories, and they will be posted on Sabre, and we'll keep you up to date as to where that's going. I think I've spoken more than enough. If anybody has a question on any of our books or You can always get them through me. I get a contributor's discount. If you send me the money, I'll send it on to Bill Nowlin and we can get them for you. It's that simple.
Thank you, Alan. Good work. Anyone have any questions or comments for Alan?
Just want to do a quick comment. Last year, my son and I did a 7 Major League ballpark tour in the Midwest, and one of the places we went to is Kansas City. If you're ever in Kansas City, you should plan to take in the Negro League's Museum of Baseball. It's not, of course, as large as Cooperstown, but it's kind of fascinating to see. I didn't realize that the depth of all the different players in the leagues that occurred over the years in the early 1900s up to about 1940, 1950. It was fascinating to just see the history of all that, of all the Negro Leagues in the United States. So you should look it up if you ever get to Kansas City.
Absolutely. And one thing I will mention, one person who's very involved in the Negro League Baseball Museum is Larry Lester, who won the Bob Davids Award a couple of years ago. Larry is currently updating his book on the East-West All-Star Game, which was Black Baseball's national showcase. It started in 1933, the same year as the Major League All-Star Game started, and had all the great players. Each year it was played at Comiskey Park. And during the war years, the attendance at these games was well over 40,000 per game. It really was remarkable, and all the great players, or most of the great players who we know, played in that game at one time or another, including Jackie Robinson, who played in it in 1945.
Good. And also as a follow-up to that, and to Ray, to your comment that we had the convention there in the mid-90s, and it would be nice to go back there again, because I would imagine the museum has probably been substantially upgraded since then.
One thing I was just going to add to what you guys said was...
Please, go ahead.
I'm sorry. One of the things I was just going to add to what you guys were saying, as a bonus, is the Jazz Museum is right next door to the Negro League Museum, which is really kind of neat to be able to go to both of those. So that was... And Alan, one thing I was going to say, another book which I read recently on the Sabre list, which I think is really good, is about the Federal Leagues. I thought that's a really
Yes.
good too.
I didn't get involved in that one because I really didn't think I could do justice to the biographies. We have a couple of guys who can do stories way back decades ago, including one guy on this phone called Joe Williams. Bill Lamb, who's one of our best writers and won the Bob Davids Award a year or so ago, and also spoke at one of our meetings on the Black Sox. Bill once told me he doesn't do a bio on a player until that player's been dead about 2 or 3 generations. So we generally do not do each other's topics, but that 1871 story I was talking to you about, I had a co-author on that book by the name of John Thorne, who some of you might have heard of. So I was a little shocked. John said I should take co-ownership of it, and well, all I did was really cut it down to the size we need for a Sabre story.
I don't want to prolong the conversation about Kansas City too long, but the other museum to take in at Kansas City is the World War I Museum. A little bit larger, might be 2 to 3 hours. And then you're just a very short 4 to 5 hour drive from Field of Dreams in the middle of the Iowa cornfields, which was a great thing to visit and just see, because it's still there, it's still alive, and really fascinating to see where they made the movie 30 years ago.
Cool.
Good reference. Thank you. Other questions, comments? Anybody else have anything to bring up about this? Well, if not, then before we adjourn, how do you like this format? In other words, do you want to do something like this again, maybe in a month?
Absolutely. I think it's a great format. I think it's fun to see different things being put on virtually, because we can all participate without having to travel very far, of course.
Good point.
One thing I might recommend, because we have Ken Paulson here, is we can have one of our trivia questions trivia contests here. And for those of you who don't know, there's a little hand somewhere around here where you could raise your hand and answer a trivia question. So that's something to think about for one of our upcoming meetings.
That's a good point by Alan, because I remember one of the things that stands out for me about Ken's trivia contest is the time when we were still meeting at Quinnipiac, when he had the computer with him and he asked a question about Ricky Henderson, and he had a map showing like sort of Henderson's cross-country journeys from one team to another. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I like Alan's idea, and also Stan Osowicki reminded me about, with the woodpile coming up that Carl had previously been a leader of, that's another showcase for this chapter. And so other ideas you might have about activities we can have, and of course, as Alan mentioned, baseball will start up finally, so that'll be nice. So any final comments or thoughts about this?
I have one. I'd like to
Please.
see if we can figure out how to play Stratomatic baseball game days virtually. Not sure how to do it, but maybe we can.
My son has.
Tom, you have.
Yeah, my son plays a Strat game once a week with a friend of his over in West Hartford. They play like 2 or 3 games. They just get on either Zoom or Skype or something where there's just 2 people. But
okay.
Yeah, but he's been playing a game called Out of the Park.
Oh, are you familiar with the fact that Out of the Park and Stratomatic both have websites where they are simulating the 2020 baseball season day by day results? If you're not familiar with it, send me an email. I can send you the 2 links to those 2 sites. I check them every once in a while to see how they compare.
Because my son wrote for Twinkie Town. He did the 16 best Twins teams and then had a playoff. And then I won't ruin who won the championship series, but it's out on Twinkie Town.
Okay.
One thing
Ray, I like your idea about doing something Stratomatic, because we've when we were able to get together, we did have Stratomatic with 8 to 10 people. So if there were a way to do it virtually, then I like what you're saying about that.
I really enjoyed the sessions I went to, and I kind of miss not having been to one for about 1.5 years or 2 years.
One thing I'd like to mention to everybody, Bill Nowlin and Joanne Holbert had gone to an event in Pawtucket, Massachusetts, what's that, Rhode Island, excuse me, the ballpark there. They were having dinner on a weekend in the outfield. And you can check there, if you're anywhere near Pawtucket, you could go to one of them. But I brought the matter up with the folks over at the Yard Goats, and they will be doing something similar. So I don't know when they're going to do it. You can check the Yard Goat website, but they'll open it up and serve dinner out on the outfield grass, which probably be a good dinner, and you'll get a nice view of downtown Hartford as well. Just to get in the mood, get in the ballpark, and get out of your house, I guess.
Many years ago, when my son was in Cub Scouts, the Rock Cats used to have a scout night, Cub Scout, Boy Scout night at their field, where you attended a game and then you were able to camp out in the outfield.
And they show a movie.
And then stay overnight and get up the next morning and leave.
Yeah. I didn't get a lot of sleep on those nights.
It wasn't intended to be that way.
Well, sounds like there's some things we can partake of, and if you have other ideas, let's hear all about it. Okay, are we ready to adjourn for the night?
I think so.
Or as Joe Nuxall used to say, rounding third and heading for home, or no runs, no hits, no errors, no one left on base. I'm trying to teach my students about this stuff. Oh, well. Okay, so let's call it a night. Thanks, everybody, and Tom in particular, Thank you for the tech and,
This was easy.
oh, good. And so we could
Thanks,
do
Tom.
it again. And
Yeah.
Mitchell and Alan, thank you both for your presentations too. So let's try it again.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thanks, Tom.
Good night.
Good
Thank
session.
you.
Next week.
Okay. Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you, Stu.
Take it.